why don't we jump into a little bit of intro? Youssef, I'd love to hear a little bit about your background, and we can kick things off and hear about what you do for the Meld team.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, guys. Again, really excited to be here. So yeah, I'm Youssef. I'm director of special projects at Meld. I've been at Meld for a bit over 2 years now. It's been a crazy journey, and we've really I've really seen a lot of different people always ask me about my title and what that actually means, and it essentially means that I kind of like go wherever I'm needed. So I've worked with the marketing team, I've worked with the tech team, and most recently I've been really helping out with external projects that are directly related to Meld, but not part of the day-to-day stuff. So I've been helping out with the different projects that are going to be launching on Meld, and a bunch of other things that are related to just making sure that the whole ecosystem grows and we have everything we need as we can kind of continue on our track to really bring the next level of banking and DeFi together. And yeah, I mean, I'm really excited to be here. I've been involved in a lot of this stuff, so I kind of have my hands around everything, which is why yeah, Ken thought it was a good idea for me to be here as well today. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of talk to you guys. I've met Matt quite a few times. I think I last saw you in Istanbul in Turkey. And yeah, really have a good relationship with the people from the AVAX team. You guys have always been super nice and welcoming towards us. So yeah, just really happy to be here and excited to talk to you guys about what we're building.
Yeah, man, happy to have you too. And yeah, it's exciting that you've met a bunch of the team members, and we finally get to have you up on a spaces because I would imagine that there's a few people that are new to the community or are kind of just new to Avalanche that haven't heard much about Meld and
Yeah, I'm happy.
things
So
that are
yeah,
coming
I can give.
to place.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Yeah, I'm happy to kind of give a quick overview of Meld, what we do, and kind of what we're trying to build for the people who don't know about us. So Meld, really, what we're trying to create is an ecosystem that speaks both to the TradFi world and the DeFi world. So those two worlds are unfortunately today still super fragmented, right? You still have to use 20 different platforms to go from whatever your crypto in your MetaMask wallet or your core wallet and having to get that into your bank account. It's a lot of fees, it's a lot of processes, it's a lot of different types of costs and transactions to get to that point where you have the money in your bank account, or vice versa. And we're really trying to simplify all of that into what actually will feel like a one super app, which does all of the DeFi primitives, and like stuff like bridging, swapping, staking, etc., etc. You'll be able to do all of those things, and at the same time, you're also able to leverage a Meld bank account, which means that you can essentially click on one button and get your off ramp, your crypto directly into your bank account, and vice versa, and click one button and go to the other direction and go from fiat to crypto. So we're really, yeah, no pun intended, but trying to meld those two worlds together, hence the name. And one of our kind of core USPs, or the thing that we're really trying to bring to the masses, is crypto to fiat loans. That's kind of like our biggest product, and that what we're building towards to. And so the crypto to fiat loan is essentially, yeah, what it sounds like. It's a crypto loan that you take using our lending and borrowing protocol. But then instead of getting crypto, which then needs to go through, if you look at the process today, the crypto that you get from a borrowing lending protocol, you then have to send to your centralized exchange. From the centralized exchange, swap it from whatever ETH to US dollars or euros, and then withdraw that to your bank account. And that's a timely, costly process. And so we're really trying to simplify that and have the crypto directly being able to be. We take care of doing all that process for you. So all you have to do is just be capital efficient, click on the button, and go directly from crypto to fiat in your bank account. And so that entire kind of process and procedure requires a lot of moving parts. It requires a fully functioning lending and borrowing protocol. It requires a wallet. It requires a banking app. It requires a banking license. So many different things that really need to be put into place to actually achieve that. And so that's why as we've gone through time, our ambition has grown, and we've realized that kind of like we have to kind of control all of the levels of this stack. And this is especially important because with lending and borrowing protocols right now, the problem is that especially if you're, for example, a US citizen, even if you're able to use it at all, what happens is that it's very hard to justify to the IRS or to whatever tax authorities in your country that actually that amount that you just withdrew from your crypto exchange into your bank account, that it's not actually capital, it's not actually a gain, but it's a borrowed amount of money, which normally, according to in the normal traditional finance system, you don't have to pay taxes on it. But with crypto right now, if you they'll fight you to death, or you'll have to get a bunch of lawyers and accountants to prove that was actually a loan. And so yeah, good luck in court. But most people just kind of like accept the fact that that there's nothing they can do about it, and pay the whatever 25% capital gains tax on everything that they withdraw from their centralized exchange. And so we're really trying to democratize that aspect, so that you don't have to go through that pain of paying insane fees and stuff like that for that process. And so because we control all the layers of the stack, from the blockchain to the lending and borrowing protocol to the neobank, we're actually able to issue kind of the proof that you need once you've taken that loan, because we've kind of like been there to do the whole process. We're actually able to give you that proof that you can show to the tax authorities afterwards, and say, okay, no, actually, listen, this is a real loan. I have a certificate here that shows that, and essentially you get to save 25% of all the money that you get out. And so yeah, it's a really big problem. I just recently took out a loan myself, and had to again go through all those steps, and I was just like, oh, Meld can't come out soon enough. And so really trying to solve all of those problems at the same time requires, like I said, control over all of those different stacks, which is why kind of we've gone and built our own Avalanche subnet and built the lending and borrowing protocol, and et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully that gives you guys kind of an idea of like why Meld exists and what we're trying to achieve with our goal and with our project. And yeah, that's kind of Meld in a nutshell.
Wow, thank you. Okay, do you mind if we test your mic, Ken?
Yeah, sure. Sorry about that. I'm in Vietnam and my connection is quite spotty, so I'm on my phone right now, so the audio is not going to be great, but I'm here.
It's working fine. Mind giving a short introduction, and then we can hop in?
Yeah, sure. I think that Youssef did a great job. Hi, I'm Ken, founder of Meld. Been working in crypto for the past 4 years now. Very, very excited about both working with Avalanche and with what we're doing. To sort of add to what Youssef was talking about, if you think about it on kind of a very high level, banks exist in the traditional world and pieces of banking, DeFi, exists in the crypto space. But you don't really have anything that is the equivalent of an on-chain bank. So the goal of Meld is to create this on-chain banking ecosystem, not so much to try and mimic like a traditional bank, like a Goldman Sachs or a Wells Fargo or a Deutsche Bank. These are monolithic and highly centralized. What we wanted to do is we wanted to create a more decentralized type of on-chain banking system. And to do that, we really needed the Avalanche subnet as the sort of base layer so that we could customize it to the needs that we had in order to build something that was economically sustainable specifically for on-chain banking.
Okay, nice. I guess I had one question. When you guys were explaining kind of the architecture, my mind was wondering, what are you guys handling for kind of the on-chain crypto exchange component? Like, what's the exact flow of funds if I'm a user with fiat in my bank? What does that exactly look like?
So you can think of it as two major components. One is the subnet that covers all the on-chain virtual assets. And the other is a banking stack that we have developed over the past 2 years, that it's not a banking stack in the sense that it's there to connect your bank to the blockchain, but it's there to connect multiple banks to our banking stack. So we're kind of a middleware that allows us to connect to multiple banking sources so that we can, well, yes, it is centralized. There's one point of contact because it's a banking stack. But we've tried to decentralize it as much as possible so that we can connect to multiple banking APIs and get access to multiple pieces of information. So the result of that is you come to Meld, you either use our wallet or you have your own wallet, and then you set up a bank account. So you go through the KYC process, you then have a deposit account at Meld. And when you have that KYC process and you have your deposit account, we put a soulbound NFT into your wallet. It's called a Me NFT that shows that you've passed KYC. So with that KYC connected to that wallet, you can now handle fiat, you can do on-ramping and off-ramping, you can handle RWAs, you can do everything that you would normally be able to do with a non-custodial wallet. But in addition to that, you can interface directly to our products. And if other projects want to build, they can build to make API connections into the backend system for the banking stack. So from a user's perspective, it's very, very seamless. You can go into a dApp, you click on a button that says, I want to swap this asset. Let's say you're in a DEX. When you finish that swap process, then there's a second swap. That would be, I want to swap this, whatever USDT or ETH or wrap Bitcoin or AVAX into dollars or euros or yen. And so from a user's perspective, it's going to feel more or less like Uniswap or a DEX, rather than feeling like a long, complex, drawn-out process. When the asset is swapped, then it just gets swapped between your non-custodial wallet and your wallet address to your deposit account address, and then it's in your deposit account. And then from there, you can access it. You can wire money out to traditional SWIFT or SEPA transactions. You can also use it in a debit card. You can do whatever you want with it.
Okay, wow. And then in terms of like supported countries, jurisdictions, etc., what's that look like? Do you guys have like a restricted countries list, or certain countries supported, or what exactly does that look like?
So right now, the big sort of elephant in the room is the US. So we currently don't support US. We have plans to support it. We know exactly how we're going to support it, but it's a long, drawn-out, arduous process that requires 51 licenses, and we haven't started that process yet. So pretty much all of Europe, large portions of South America, large portions of Africa, Middle East, most Asian countries. We don't support, obviously, the sanction list, so we don't do things like North Korea or Iran. But bar those kind of extreme examples, we cover pretty much the entire planet.
Okay, that makes sense. Have you guys thought about, well, I don't know, maybe you already have it, but like perhaps having like a permissionless DeFi protocol that can also interact with like the permissioned users or something like that? I don't know if that would look similar to like an Aave or a Compound in terms of just forking one of those protocols, or maybe like a working capital pool that's permissionless or something like that.
So this is exactly what we've been building. So we currently have in testnet our lending and borrowing protocol, which is a fork of Aave with some pretty interesting modifications to it. And in addition to that, we're also bringing into that mix the support for RWAs, because obviously stablecoins, dollars, those are considered to be RWAs. And the ability to have composable on-ramping and off-ramping, which is what you're talking about, this idea of permissionless connectivity to the traditional banking world. And that's what the Me NFT provides different protocols to be able to build on top of. So yes, that's exactly what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do it in a bit more of a smart manner, in the sense that while, yes, our lending and borrowing protocol is similar to an Aave, like Youssef said, it also allows you to not just take your ETH and swap it in or borrow USDC against it. You can take your ETH and you can borrow USD against it. So that's one of the big components. The second is if you're using ETH, if you want to supply ETH, you're bridging it from ETH. If you want to supply AVAX, you're bridging it from Avalanche, from the C chain. When you bridge those assets over, then on the origin chain, they're staked. And when you bring them over to the Meld blockchain and use them in the lending and borrowing protocol, you earn the yield generated on that asset that's sitting on the origin chain. So a lot of what we're trying to do is what's called capital efficiency. We're trying to make more effective use of the assets that you have and what you're doing with them so that they're always earning you money all the time. And this is kind of goes back into this idea of on-chain banking. If you have a traditional bank account and you put whatever $1,000 into it, you're not going to make any interest on that. It's just not going to happen. But if you have a traditional bank account and then you keep all of your dollars in the form of USDC or USDT or even more exotic things like, whatever HYUSD, high yield USD, where you're getting like 14% on that, then the world of fixed income or yielding instruments opens up much more broadly to users, so they can think of it less as taking my money and speculating in the crypto space. That's great and that's fine, and we're always going to do that. But you can just simply keep your assets in your kind of on-chain bank, which is not somebody else's, but it's only yours. And you can always earn interest on all of the assets you have there, either via the lending and borrowing protocol or by moving them into one of these RWAs.
Okay, that makes sense. And I guess diving into the technical architecture, if I remember correctly, Meld originally started on Cardano, and
Correct.
it's funny. I kind of remember our conversations from almost 2 years ago now about potentially building on a subnet, and then you guys
Yeah.
eventually did. And so I guess it would be good for the audience just to kind of explain the reasoning why you chose a subnet, how it's been, that sort of thing.
So on a high level, we wanted to go to an EVM blockchain. We wanted to be, if possible, we wanted to be part of an ecosystem. We didn't want to kind of just fork ETH and then go sort of follow that route. We like Avalanche, and part of what we like about Avalanche is the personality of the Avalanche users. Avalanche users tend to be more kind of grown up than other blockchains, and we were looking for that kind of grown-upness, that kind of professionalism. But most importantly, we were looking for the ability at the most base level to customize the chain, right? That was the imperative for what we were doing, because part of the reason for going to our own chain was about getting rid of the problem of gas fees. And so we knew how we wanted to solve the gas fee architecture problem, but we didn't know whether there was an ecosystem out there that would help us be able to do that. And Avalanche subnets were sort of the obvious choice for us to do that. Where what we've done is we've removed the idea of either using transaction fees to pay for the validator's block rewards or using the treasury to pay for the validator's block rewards. What we've done is we've connected revenue from the lending and borrowing protocol goes and pays for the validator's block rewards. Why this is important, it means that all people on the chain are pulling in the same direction for the same thing, for TVL. The higher the TVL on the chain, the higher the TVL on the lending and borrowing, the higher the revenue, the higher the block rewards. So the people running the nodes have an incentive to bring more TVL onto the chain. Users, they bring more TVL into the chain, they get a higher yield, but they always have super, super cheap gas fees because you've decoupled this correlation between transaction fees or gas fees and paying of block rewards.
Okay. What do transaction fees currently look like on the Meld subnet?
They're currently, for a base transaction, it's, I think, 0.40 6 cents or something like that.
Wow,
So
so
what
basically negligible. So like
yeah,
almost zero.
virtually non-existent. So what I told the engineering team the target was, when Meld the token hits $20, then I want a base transaction to be approximately 1 cent. That's the target. So I think currently, if you do 1 million transactions, it's around $14
Man, that's
on
so
the chain.
crazy.
But
I love subnets so much. They're so
yeah,
wonderful in terms of
but I
scaling.
mean, I think that Youssef has actually been working with this, right? So he can probably give you a much better perspective in regards to the engineering side, how it is to actually work with the subnet.
I mean, yeah, you did a pretty good job summarizing it. It's almost like it's just in passing, right? You don't even think about it anymore. When you try to build on ETH or other kind of like more expensive blockchains, you always have to think about the user experience when it comes to how to make the DApp as cheap, even with the engineering of the smart contracts, but also in terms of the UX and trying to make the user have to make the least amount of transactions to be able to reduce the end cost. But obviously here it's something that you don't have to think about anymore, which kind of opens up a lot of possibilities also related to kind of like what Ken said, sponsoring those transactions so that users don't, because it's so cheap, you can reduce that, you can abstract that complexity entirely and just cover the gas fees for all of your users without having to think about whether that's going to eat up from your treasury or not as a DApp. So yeah, no, we've only gotten positive feedback regarding that, and it's super crucial for anything that really that's going to have to do like high TPS and especially with the banking side and having quick finality and stuff. So no, absolutely, it's only been positive.
Amazing. I guess, is there anything other than just like low gas fees, quick finality that you guys did unique that needed an Avalanche subnet in your own highly customized chain?
I mean, it was really, it was around staking and creating this new type of staking mechanic, so that we were able to correlate the lending and borrowing to the native staking on the chain. So we have native staking on the Meld blockchain, but it doesn't look like Avalanche staking. So our staking, we have our nodes, and users can stake their Meld to each of the different nodes, and then they get a NFT as part of that. And there's 4 different tiers of staking. You have liquid, 6-month lockup, 1-year lockup, and 5-year. And those NFTs behave like a bond, so you can trade them in the secondary market. So we wanted to be able to, we knew we wanted to do this. We knew that this was kind of a key feature. And when we looked at all the different possible options, subnets were the ones that were the most mature and that afforded us the most ability to do this while still participating in an existing community. So I think the uniqueness and the technology is great and everything, but I think one of the big value propositions for subnets is you're part of a bigger community.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Essentially, you can have a semi-permissioned ecosystem, but you can still be composable with other parts, especially of the Avalanche kind of community and network. I think once Teleporter, which is our native interoperability solution, well, sorry, AWM and Teleporter,
Yeah.
once it goes live here in about a month and a half, I think that'll really make users feel like it's a singular blockchain when in reality it's a bunch of multiple interconnected sovereign state blockchains and subnets.
We
Because
can't wait.
yeah, that's going to have under 5 seconds of true time to finality. It's really just dependent on the source chain and the receiving chain, 1 block of confirmation on each side. So that should be very, very fast, and users will hardly know the difference of what chain or what subnet they're on.
That's really the way it should be. Nobody's really solved this yet outside of Cosmos, so I think it's great that you guys are tackling this problem.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's what, like you said, people have thought of IBC as kind of the gold standard for
Right.
interoperability and interconnectivity over the past, I don't know, 3 years or so. And so I'm very, very excited for teams to really get their hands dirty with Teleporter and AWN and see its true power and whatnot. I guess Transitioning over, you guys also have a non-custodial wallet called MELDapp, correct?
Yeah.
I guess could you explain what that is, kind of the feature set behind it and whatnot?
So on the high level, it's the primary interface into all of the Meld products. So it currently sits on the web as a website. It also, we're just in the next couple of weeks, we're going to be submitting it to the App Store. So we'll have it as a mobile app. And in the next couple of, probably in the next couple of, I don't want to give a date. Within the next quarter, we'll have it as a browser extension. And this is kind of a window into all of the functionality in the Meld ecosystem, from staking to lending and borrowing. And when I say staking, yes, we have our own native staking, but we also support Cardano staking. We will support Avalanche staking. We'll support ETH staking. So the goal here is to not create something that is exclusively kind of a walled garden for Meld, but it's a way for people to utilize all of their assets in the most efficient way possible. And so the MELDapp is really just that kind of window into the Meld ecosystem, but it's not the only way in. You can still, of course, use MetaMask. You can still use Rainbow. You can even have our wallet, and you can connect your MetaMask to our wallet, or connect Nami, which is a Cardano wallet, to our wallet. So we want to be more inclusive and kind of participative with all the different ecosystems and kind of bring them together, rather than just kind of create our own thing for our own ecosystem.
Okay. Wow, that's amazing. And so I know we had a call relatively recently, and RWAs has been a super hot topic in really all of
Sure.
blockchain as well as TradFi. And it seems like you guys are diving headfirst into RWAs. Can you guys kind of provide light on what you're doing in relation to RWAs, kind of exciting updates?
So to start with, RWAs cover a broad range. RWAs cover, stablecoins or RWAs. As a general rule, RWAs are absolutely dead boring. They're a complete snooze fest. Who wants Tesla stock or Apple stock on the blockchain? Yeah, there's a kind of a vague degree of efficiency, or maybe a bit of convenience or something like that, but liquidity is low. You can't trade them on an AMM, on a traditional DEX, because you'll get too much slippage. You'll get too much impermanent loss against an asset that has a massive amount of liquidity elsewhere, and it's just boring. If you buy Apple stock, or you buy whatever, some meme coin, your meme coin is going to outperform the Apple stock. So we've been kind of looking at RWAs and kind of trying to put them under a harsh light, and saying, yes, it's a narrative, but what is really interesting about them? And one of the really interesting things is the ability to take them and put them into a basket. So look at them less as a single asset, and look at them more as a index, or something like that. And so one of the things we're looking at is, how can we put RWAs together into a basket of not just similar themes, but similar functions, like a high return dividend fund or ETF, or set of funds, or set of ETFs. What does that look like as an RWA, where you can get, dividends, quarterly, and you're going to be looking at something like anywhere from like 7 to 10% APY on the asset. The other thing we're looking at is more kind of general theme and more kind of alpha-based RWAs. One of them that we've talked about is the idea of creating a Tesla RWA, or sorry, not Tesla, an Elon Musk RWA, which includes Doge and Tesla and all the other both on-chain and off-chain assets that touch Elon Musk as a meme. So you're not so much investing into a specific business, as much as you're investing in a kind of a meme RWA. And so these, I think, are much more interesting ways of looking at RWAs in the space. And our partner with RWAs, we have two partners. One of them is Bitbond, and the other one is Swarm. Swarm is an issuer of RWAs, and Bitbond is a tokenization partner. And with Swarm, we're working with them to build these baskets and build these much more interesting instruments that they become a primitive in the DeFi space. That's if we look back a year from now in the future, and what is it that's going to actually move the needle in the RWA space? And I think that it has to be something that will be able to have an impact in DeFi in the same way that STETH has had an impact in DeFi. And so we're working more towards these ideas, like what, from the RWA world, what can we put together that is going to be a driver or an engine, the same way that STETH has been an engine in the ETH ecosystem. And so one of the things we're looking at that we're working with is this idea of a high yield fixed income basket, where you have several different assets, mainly bonds or ETFs that are filled with bonds that have a very high yield, and it's a fixed yield, so we know it's a predictable yield. And then be able to turn that into a tokenized asset that you can then use in a permissionless system to generate a predictable native yield. These are the kinds of things that we think are interesting in the RWA space. As a secondary note, one of the main reasons why we started with the RWA stuff was largely to be able to include it in the lending and borrowing protocol. So when our lending and borrowing protocol goes live, you'll be able to take Apple stock, any of these indexes, or other types of RWAs that we'll have on Meld, and you'll be able to borrow against them. So you'll be able to get exposure to your Tesla, and you'll be able to become liquid against that and just sit when, watch the asset appreciate. Excuse me. So that's kind of where our head is at in the RWAs. We're right now sort of neck deep in the technical side of things, working on the purchase process. You'd think that the sort of tokenization would be the hard part, but really the tokenization is the easiest part. The hardest part is this kind of clash that happens between the crypto world and the fiat world. It's like crypto doesn't live from 9 to 4 New York time, but a lot of the RWAs, a lot of the bond market, they do live in this kind of very narrow time zone. And so it makes for kind of a bit of a challenge when it comes to the UX to get the RWAs having a similar UX to the crypto world.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to be completely frank, you kind of hit the nail on the head where like RWAs, and more specifically like on-chain tokenized assets, they're a hot topic, but they're not that useful. Like anyone can tokenize any asset, but there needs to be a demand for that asset. There needs to be new efficiencies, I guess, why it opens up new use cases, liquidity, etc. Exactly. And so I think you guys are kind of doing a great job figuring out what people would want to do with these tokenized assets versus just saying, hey, we're just gonna kind of join in on this hot area. And so
look, you can buy the whatever Microsoft, or you can buy Coinbase. Yay, I can buy Coinbase.
Exactly. I mean, it's good for people in areas that don't have complex financial markets that might not have access to these.
Yes,
but in particular for more established players, unfortunately, that's not that interesting. And so you kind of are exactly correct. Go on, sorry.
But it's You're right in the sense that it's a big thing in the emerging markets, right? In markets where you and I can't very easily go to whatever eToro or E-Trade and get these stocks or bonds. Yes, it's a big thing, but from sort of what we have been saying from day one is that's only a small portion of the narrative. It's like saying the same thing in regards to, yes, for people in emerging markets to get access to Bitcoin as a hedge against inflation is great. Yes, it is great. But what you want is you want to be able to provide the instruments that allow them to leverage that into greater wealth. And so, yes, it's good that they can get access to their Microsoft stock, but if they can get access to that stock and then borrow against it to get some of that liquidity out, you've now made it possible for them to, not on the same scale, but you've made it possible for them to behave in the same way that a high net worth individual or a large corporation works when it comes to their liquidity as, a maid in Brazil or, an office worker in Dubai or wherever it might be. And so I think that that's really it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not the solution to the puzzle. And so I think that the fact that it's got a spotlight on it is fantastic, but it's still very important that we keep a critical eye on exactly, yes, we want to do RWAs and it's great, but what, 6 months from now, what is actually going to provide a benefit to everybody after the narrative has kind of mellowed out?
Exactly. I guess also kind of staying within this topic, your team also just received your VASP license. Is that correct?
One of our VASP licenses, correct. So we have our VASP license in Lithuania. We're currently in the process of getting one in the Cayman Islands, and we have 2 other license processes underway as well.
Would you mind explaining what VASP is?
Sure.
I think there's probably a good bit of people, even myself, that is not too familiar with VASP, and so I think it would be very helpful.
So VASP stands for Virtual Asset Service Provider. And it's just a fancy jargon or acronym for a license that allows an entity to handle crypto and, depending on the jurisdiction you're in, also handle fiat. So from a strict understanding of what a VASP license is, or the intentions, I guess, is the intention of a VASP license is that you should only be able to mint a token if you have a VASP license. That's what their intentions are. That's obviously not the case. We can all mint tokens all day long, which is the way it should be, which is great. But if you want to handle tokens of other people, right? So for example, if you're an exchange, then you need a VASP license. If you want to mint tokens and sell them, so for example, let's say you want to create a stable coin, so you want to receive fiat and then you want to mint tokens against that, you need a VASP license. So it really has to do with kind of a safety net from a regulatory perspective when it comes to handling of various different types of tokens and token activities like minting and burning. So for us, part of the reason for having a VASP license is that when we're working with other licensed entities like banks or neobanks, they much prefer to work with and have agreements with other licensed entities rather than non-licensed entities. And so that's one of the big value propositions. In addition to that, if you're doing on-ramping and off-ramping, you have to have a VASP license.
Okay, that makes complete sense. Congrats on that first license. That's huge, and seems like you guys are close to the next kind of wave of 3 or 4 as well.
They'll be coming in
I
the coming
guess.
quarter.
Okay, nice. I guess kind of moving on. What else is there in terms of the roadmap, future plans, a potential airdrop? What can we expect?
Yeah, so from the air, well, actually, no. I can go into that. That's great and everything. But I think that, especially when it comes to this spaces, one of the big things is our developer program. And so I would like to hand it over to Youssef to walk you through the developer program, which is just about to start up.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're kind of giving a bit of an exclusive here because we haven't shared too much information previously. So you guys are hearing this for the first time. But essentially, we're planning to really push hard on the developer ecosystem on the Meld subnet, and specifically, we kind of have a whole roadmap of different phases and stuff like that that we're planning on executing on. But yeah, kind of from like a developer perspective, you can think of most developers right now who aren't in this space. Usually, there needs to be an incentive for developers to go from whatever from X blockchain or either being in Web 2 to going to Web 3 or going from an X blockchain to Y blockchain. And so we've kind of like looked at a lot of the stuff that's been happening recently in terms of hackathons throughout the different blockchains, stuff that's happening on Base, on Solana, on Celestia, and we've tried to find the best of all of those things and marry them in one kind of unique but very incentivized and interesting system. So essentially what we've done is that we've built a three-phase process where we're going to start with a hackathon for 4 or 5 weeks, where we're incentivizing developers to come and essentially build on the Meld blockchain, specifically within what we talked about over the last 20 minutes or so, but on the DeFi and RWA thematic, and specifically the main unique selling point for a developer to build on Meld is kind of not having to worry about all of the complexities that come with on and off ramping, and that come with trying to build a good UX for your users. And so we're planning to really kind of build a super set of APIs and of different can also mention the My NFTs, which are going to be NFTs that have like a KYC level associated with them. And so we're really trying to, in anticipation of releasing the banking stack and for all of that to hit mainnet, we kind of want to invite developers to already start thinking about what type of unique products they can build on Meld, taking into account all of the innovation that's going to happen there. And so you can imagine that like a team can, who's doing something with yield harvesting or aggregation can essentially, instead of having to paying out that yield directly to the user in their wallet, they can essentially send that yield or provide that yield as US dollars directly in the user's bank account. And so that's kind of like the most basic, let's say, innovation that can happen there. But there's so many different verticals that the developers can look into. And so in this initial phase, where we're going to invite a lot of developers to come and build, we'll kind of like give them everything that they need, from support on a technical level to access to the team internally of like our own APIs, et cetera, et cetera. But the goal is to essentially get them up and running as fast as possible, and then from that we're going to kind of go through a selection process once all of those projects have been submitted, and then we'll let the community, because we think that the community really plays a role, and I'll mention why more specifically in a second. But the community needs to be at the center of this, and so we're going to allow the community to essentially vote on which projects they think have the most whether they like them the most, or they think that they have the most ambition or the most chances of succeeding, and then we're going to start kind of like incubating those projects that are voted on, and start paying them on a frequent basis. So instead of having like a hackathon with a prize at the end and then everybody goes home, it's kind of like, okay, no, we're actually, you've been selected, so now you get to essentially get paid to build, right? And those teams, as developers, you can, most of the time your projects end at the end of the hackathon, and unless you win, you're going to leave it kind of just there, and maybe you do something with it, but more often than not you don't. And so we kind of want to foster that environment where even if you haven't potentially gotten maybe not everybody wins, but for the ones that for a larger amount of people, instead of only 1 or 2 winners, they still get essentially paid to continue developing on those on Meld and build those projects. But that's all going to culminate into a final once you go after 4 or 5 weeks of building and getting paid to do so, and especially using the credits that we have from our partners and stuff like that, then eventually it all culminates in an ISBO. So for some of you, you don't know what an ISBO is. An ISBO is the way we as Meld fundraised partially the way we did our own fundraising, and so that's basically a way for you to stake your tokens on a proof of stake blockchain to a node to a node, and instead of receiving the native coin as a reward, you received a project's token. And so we've already done a really successful ISPO right now that's still ongoing with Dega. So Dega has launched an ISPO on the Meld blockchain, which means that they're running a node. People can stake to it, and after a certain amount of time, the Dega uses those funds to kind of like use it for engineering, marketing, whatever whatever they need to use those funds for. And in exchange, they will issue a token. And so we've done that really successfully. We've done it ourselves and with Dega now. And so we've kind of thought about how can we turn this into almost like a product that can also be directly integrated with the ecosystem and with the community. And so ideally, once those teams that have been paid to keep building over a period of time, at the end they actually get to the quote unquote prize is to get chosen by the community again, of course, to run an ISPO. So we'll help them set up the ISPO. It's quite expensive because usually you'll need to run up in this case an AVAX node, and AVAX nodes require 2,000 AVAX to be staked. So it's not anyone who can just run a node, but we'll help them set all of that up, and eventually you get to a point where that team, based on the fact that they've already been chosen by the community over time, they've been growing on the Meld ecosystem, and people have been aware of what they're doing. It all culminates to an ISPO where then that team that's chosen will have the ISPO go live, and then the entire community can then stake into that pool and then raise kind of like a serious amount of money. And then that's the way we kind of incubate projects on the Meld blockchain through this novel ISPO mechanic that we pioneered and that we want to bring kind of more at the forefront. And so through this entire process, essentially, we hope to really bring developers a lot of improvements from the side of the UX and the things that they can build on the Meld blockchain because of that direct on-chain neobank integration. But on the other side, having a very democratized and public fundraising system where the community is directly involved in that entire process, and then they get to participate in the ISPO and go through that entire fundraising mechanic. So it's super interesting. I don't think it's being done anywhere else that way. And we really want to be kind of innovative in the way we do things, whether it's on the technical stack, but all the way up to developer programs and unique things that are launching on the Meld blockchain. So that's kind of like the Meld developer program in a nutshell. There's obviously a bunch of other benefits that I'm not going to I haven't mentioned, but you'll see them once we release the website and the application forms. But it's definitely something that we're super excited to release, and we want to kind of really make sure that people can dream big once they see all of the things that we can provide as a blockchain, and then on top of that, make sure that they get funded and paid throughout the whole process.
Yeah, I think sometimes we have this notion of caring too much about degen activity and kind of users and whatnot, when in reality, to get new users, you have to have good developers, more specifically, good like consumer applications. Sometimes I also feel that we are constantly developing deep pieces of technical architecture that unfortunately might not ever get good use cases, and they might just be bookshelved without actually getting adoption. And so I think you guys kind of promoting developers kind of more specifically like consumer applications and then kind of helping them raise money, that sort of thing, makes a ton of sense. And I'm glad you guys are doing it. I guess while we still have 5 minutes or so, maybe we could open up to the community for potential questions to you guys, and I can bring people up here.
Yeah, good idea.
One by one. Yep. So if you have a question that you want to ask the Meld team, please request to join as a speaker, and I can bring you up. I guess while we're waiting for requests, do you guys have any closing thoughts or conclusions that you want to speak about?
I think just that, the next couple months are going to be very exciting with all the projects and all the developers and the hackathon that's coming out. We're finally seeing, the lending and borrowing protocol coming out of testnet. and we're seeing the MELDapp on mobile going live. We'll also be seeing RWAs going live, and this idea of permissionless use of on-ramping and off-ramping. So I think these things we've been working for a very long time now. Meld started 3 years ago, and we're finally starting to see the fruition of us melding the fiat and the crypto together, and seeing the fruits of all of the work that our engineers have been doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's super exciting, and we need to really make sure you guys kind of get in the spotlight for our community. And you guys have helped pioneer subnets over the past 2 years or so. And so thank you for being around and really ensuring subnet adoption.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
So we don't have any requests yet. Oh, here's one. How's it going, Rebel on Crypto? Can you hear us? Oh, it's still connecting.
Beauties of technology.
I know, for real. And then you had trouble as well. Not Twitter, X is being slow this morning.
How many subnets are there now? Do you know?
I was actually looking at this yesterday because I had an RFQ for a team. 1 second, we have another request. And right now, in a mainnet environment, there's close to 50. And in a testnet environment, it was like over 500 because it said
wow.
Over 3,000 blockchains. Like, obviously, those aren't going to go like all to a mainnet environment, but it's still very exciting. Endo, we have you here if you can hear us.
Yeah, I won't disappoint you, Ken. I'm here.
Hey, Endo. Hey,
Yo.
Endo.
Yo. Hey, Ken, how's Vietnam? How is the Azomi team doing? What can you tell us about the DEX?
The Azomi team is doing well. They have one bug that they need to fix in relationship to the DEX. The DEX is going to be a Uniswap v2 clone, and Uniswap v2 came out 3.5 years ago. So there's some really bad UX in the v2 code base that we've had to make some adjustments to in relationship to the LP token handling. So that's the last thing that needs to get fixed. They're working on that right now. So right now we're talking to liquidity providers and working with them to support them in regards to their launch plans and their marketing efforts. So as soon as this bug is fixed, then they'll be deploying contracts onto mainnet, and then we will finally have a DEX on the Meld blockchain.
Woohoo! Amazing.
Yeah. So I've seen you guys have been testing it in testnet, right? I've seen it in the chats here and there, right?
I haven't. I think Wesley has.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's available on testnet, so you can test it out if you want to. Use our testnet tokens. You can go to get testnet tokens on faucet.meld.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can swap and try out the DEX.
Is that just testnet.azomi?
No, this is testnet for Meld. It's for all of Meld. So if you go to faucet.meld.com, you can just put in your wallet address.
I get that part. But to test Azomi on testnet, is that publicly available or?
Yeah, it's publicly available.
Okay. Somebody ping me the URL, please, in the chat. That would be great.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Super. We'll share it with you later.
Anyways, I don't think we have any more requests, and I know we're almost directly at time.
Okay.
But wanted to thank both the Meld team as well as the audience for listening in. And Meld, thank you so much for sharing with us your time and kind of making insightful discussion and educating us on what you guys have built over the past couple years and what's to come. Thank you once again. And if you have any final thoughts, please say them now.
No, thank you guys for having us. We love joining you guys on these spaces, and looking forward to working with you and jumping into the middle of this bull run.
Let's go.
Anyways, thank you all, and have a nice rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.